Okay, hi Kenneth, hi Felix. Thank you so much for joining me here today on Vonvo.com. Today's date is March 30th, 2013, and we're here to discuss the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. I just want to go over two quick rules before we get started. The first is that right now this conversation is being recorded, and after the conversation is completed, I'll be uploading this video to the internet. Is that okay with both of you?
It's fine. Sure.
Okay, great. And then on top of that, here at Vonvo, we're all about our conversations staying both civil and valuable. We don't want there to be any personal attacks against anyone inside of a discussion. Are you guys fine with that ground rule?
The other thing.
Okay, great. So let's get then our conversation started. If you don't mind, could each of you quickly give a brief background to yourself for all the people who are listening inside of the room, as well as those people who will be watching this video in the future. And Felix, you can go first, give a quick background, and then Kenneth, you can go afterwards.
I think we lost Kenneth.
Yeah, it looks like we just lost Kenneth. Perhaps his internet might be struggling. I'm sure he'll come right back in. So Felix, if you want to start, that's more than fine. Then as soon as Kenneth jumps back in, he can give his background. It looks like he's coming back in now.
Okay, let's get on.
All right, no problem. Hey, Kenneth, are you there? Is your internet okay?
Holds together.
That's all right.
Okay, I guess I can start first.
Okay, good.
I've been a long-time supporter of Israel. For over, 25 years I've been active. And my first introduction with anything remotely connected with the so-called conflict, but which I prefer to call the Arabs' war against Israel, was when I was a volunteer on a kibbutz in northern Israel. And from that point on, I've pretty much kept myself abreast of the issues and so forth. I also maintain a blog and so forth.
Okay, great. Felix, are you there?
Yes, I am.
All right. Do you want to give your quick background now? You're hearing Felix, okay, right?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So, go right ahead, Felix.
Okay, for all those who are listening, my name is Felix. I currently live in Toronto. I have been for the last 26 years. I'm originally from Trinidad, which is, for those who don't know, it's a country in the Caribbean, next door to Jamaica, Barbados, and...
I've been there.
Oh, you've been there? Cool.
Yes, I have.
My interest in all of this, I've always been one to believe in fairness and democracy and things like that. I hate wars. I hate to see neighbors fighting with each other when there are simpler solutions. And all these conflicts going on in the Middle East has gained my interest because I believe the level of spirituality that is involved in the Middle East, there could be better solutions as opposed to fighting and killing each other. So that's where my interest lies.
Great. So, guys, what I'd like to do is, sort of cover a few different subjects, and primarily I'd just like to start off, though, with really getting into, the easing our way into the topic, which would be, Kenneth, can you sort of give us a quick background of, your overall take on the present situation between Israelis and Palestinians, and sort of give us your summation of it, and then we can kind of take it from there, and then Felix can chime off what you have to say.
Okay. As I have said before on a couple of different occasions that I've been on Vonvo, for the most part, you have my concern is that the two sides are understood to be in a situation where one side is continually the aggressor, and the other side is continually the victim. And I think that there's a need for people to understand the difference between the both societies in question, and that expectations of one side is not met with the same seriousness as with the other side. What I mean by that is that international commitments through treaties, through signed documents and so forth, the way the United States and Europe hold one side to accountability while being a blind eye to the Palestinians, I think is a situation that needs addressing, and that you can't hope to have any type of moving the ball forward. One side is continually given a free pass. I would look at the way the European Union holds its policies vis-a-vis the European dictatorship. The only European dictatorship left in existence is Belarus, and their policies vis-a-vis that state should be mirrored in their policies with, vice versa. The policies, how Europe maintains its relations with the Palestinian Authority should be mirrored in how they view and how they handle their relations with Belarus. In other words, that any type of serious negotiations with them have to be met with actual advancement on the ground. And with the Palestinian Authority, it's just not there. And the record is clear that the more money is being dumped into the Palestinian Authority, more money is being wasted. The actual lives of the people are not improving, and this is all in the tune of trillions of dollars, or billions, just say billions upon billions of dollars been pumped into it with no show for all that money and time and effort spent. So.
Right.
I'll hand the ball back to Felix.
Right. Go ahead, Felix.
So I'm trying to understand Kenneth's view here. Are you, tell me if I'm hearing right, are you saying that the tension being given between the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, that Palestinians are viewed or treated more favorably than the Israelis? Is that?
I would say that. I would say so. I would say so, and let me just qualify that. I would say that the lower of expectations for the Palestinians, and I think it's what some people might call a soft racism of lower expectations. And I think that the only people that actually deal with the Palestinians on an equal footing are the Israelis themselves.
And so if I'm just seeking clarification here at this point, right? If that is what your take is, that the Israelis seem to be soft in their approach to the Palestinians, then why is the level of intensity of animosity between them seems to be growing instead of decreasing? I'm not understanding that.
Okay, that's a fair question. It's a fair question. The reason being for the animosity that growing between them is due to the fact that on the one side you have a viable, working, democratic state that is representative of the people's wishes and desires. And on the other side, you have an authoritarian, at times despotic regimes, which, whether there be the Palestinian Authority or in Gaza, run by Hamas. And so the reason for the animosity between the two is because one side, in my personal opinion, has more invested in keeping the conflict going, thereby maintaining the conduit for international aid, which does not end up helping the average Palestinian. The other side basically is tied to a situation that it doesn't want to be. I think that most Israelis, if you ask them, would want to be just left alone, have the conflict over with, and carry on with their daily lives. This is not a situation that is in their benefit to keep going. But you have to look at the other side of the fence that is not representative democracy, that has every invested interest in keeping people tied to their own dispersing of funds and ties and all these things together. That situation has been allowed to fester and so forth, and you just have to understand the difference between the two societies as in general to understand why one side is in continual angst and the other side just wants to get along with their lives.
All right, let me just ask you this: if you were to equate, let's in terms of firepower between the Israelis and the Palestinians, let's say a war were to break out between these two entities, who do you think, or who has the greater margin of power to win that fight between the Israelis and Palestinians?
Well, it's basically it's irrelevant.
No. It is irrelevant. But
let me. I hear you, Felix. I hear you, Felix. I'm going to try to answer your question. I think that's a good point you bring up. The disparity between the amount of weapons between the two sides. And that's a fair question. But I'm going to have to ask and twist the question around and ask you this. What would happen, in your honest opinion, face to face here, what is your honest opinion in light of what you see happening in Syria, what you see happening in Egypt, what you see happening in Libya, what you see happening in Tunisia, what you see happening in Iraq, all of these Arab states? In light of that, if the disparity in weapons was reversed, what do you think would happen to the Jews?
Well, you asked me my opinion, right? No,
your opinion, yeah, I'm asking your opinion. So
okay. I after having spoken to a lot of people, not on the internet, but where I live here in Toronto, I've had a lot of discussions with. I love having discussions on these things, and I love hearing all sides. I don't care where you come from. All I care about is what your opinion is. When you look at the history of Jews and the way it is taken by the world, the acceptance of what has happened in the past, I think if the situation was reversed, I think we wouldn't have what is happening now, because the excitement of some people for war and some people's love for war, it would not be there if it was reversed. And it would be like two bullies going to fight, and one shows up with a knife and the other one shows up with a gun, but the bigger bully just looks at the guy with the gun, throws his knife away and says, this is no fight, and he goes home. What happens next? Everybody who came to see the fight, they go home, and that's the end of that. And that's what I think would happen. But when you have all this conflict going on, and countries fighting with each other, neighbors fighting with each other, there are people, and I mean there are real people, who thrive on this kind of thing. Even, I wouldn't go so far as to say journalists. Without some of these conflicts going on in the Middle East, some journalists wouldn't survive. They'd be out of business. So they depend on this kind of conflict happening. But my opinion is, it would just die down, and things would drastically change.
That's not really what I was asking. That's not really what I was asking. I was saying that if the disparity was reversed, if the Arabs had the upper hand with weapons,
Right.
Okay? If the disparity was reversed in light of what you see happening in the Middle East, with the same people having a superiority in weapons and having a grudge against the Jews, still saying that they are occupying their land, what do you think would happen with the Jews?
Okay, if things were as it is currently, and this is all I can base it on, if the Jews have the support of the United States and they have the support of...
That's not the question. That's not the question.
I'm getting to it.
Yeah, let Felix go ahead.
If they have the support that they have now of the United States and the UK and all the other countries that are sympathetic to the Israeli, then I don't think anything would happen. Everybody would just put their tails between their legs and remain where they are. I don't think they would want to just try to wipe out the Jews when they'll automatically have, let's say, the rest of the Western world to deal with. I think it'll just die down. That's what I believe. I don't think they're just going to march into Israel and start killing Jews left, right, and center. I don't think that's what's going to happen. Honestly, that's what I believe.
Okay, well, I appreciate that's your thought. That's what that you believe. But I think that it's not really based in reality. And I say that with all due respect. I'm not dissing you here.
No, that's okay.
Don't take it personal. But the reason why I'm saying it's not based in reality is the reason being we see what's happening in the Arab world. We see what happens when there's this disparity in weapons. And the other side has an objective. They will murder, totally annihilate as many people as possible to reach their objective. There is no reference to international law. What Israel does when it launches a campaign prior to launching a campaign, for example, in Gaza, seeks out all the different areas where can we do this, can we do this, can we do that? Does this comply before they actually do something? And they actually do that. That is a fact. You will not see that on the Arab side. There is no respect for international law. There's no respect for human rights. Now, my point being is this, is that if you look at the Palestinian Authority, you look at Hamas run Gaza. What happened in Gaza? When Hamas took over, they threw Fatah members from tall buildings to the ground. Tossed them off the buildings. Reporters standing in the courtyard of the Muqtada, in the courtyard, witnessed Arafat, during Arafat's time, summarily executing people, lining them up against a wall and shooting them. We saw Israelis, soldiers, who took a wrong turn in Ramallah and ended up being lynched. Their organs being torn out of their bodies, and the organs held high, ripped out, entrails in these people's hands. This is the mentality that you're dealing with. This is why I'm saying you have to look at the different societies. One society is based on the civil society. The other society is based on tribal, clannish society. You've got two different ways of thinking here. So what I'm saying is this: if the other side had superiority in weapons, you would not see the type of limited warfare that takes place. You would see whole-scale mass murder, the type that you see in Syria and in Egypt and in Iraq and elsewhere. That's what I'm saying.
No, I fully understand what you're saying. And I can't foresee the future to see what, if it was, this is what was going to happen. But there's more interest being paid now to the Middle East than ever was. Okay, this is 2013. And, okay, I'm 49 years old. And let's say 20 years ago, if you had asked me anything about the Middle East, I might not have known, because that's not what my interest was at that age. I was living in Trinidad, and we're a Caribbean country where life is different. And all we knew, Israel was a country. That's all we knew, or that's all I knew. There was no, but today's society, across the globe, there's more interest in what's happening. So therefore, the Arab world has to pay more attention as to what's happening because there's more onlookers. Right? There's more onlookers. And so what you're saying is not that you're wrong. I won't say you're wrong. But in my view, I think it would work out totally different. And I think one of the main reasons that Israelis, let's say, or Jews are disliked so much today, or ever was, because of, and I know a lot of people are probably going to jump on me for this, but in my mind, it's a fact. The amount of support that the Israelis get from especially the United States, it angers the rest of the Middle East because a lot of countries don't have that support from the US, right? And I recently watched a documentary, and we had some discussions on this before with another group, but I watched this documentary of an Israeli, I forgot his name, but he's an Israeli who did a documentary for Israel, and then he went into Palestine, and he filmed there as well. And he was showing some of what the Israeli soldiers was doing to Palestinian people, and his own people, the Israeli, they hate him. They want to kill him. They said he's spreading propaganda, even though it's on film. And that's what I'm saying. It's changing. The whole dynamic of how they interact with each other, it's changing. And the role that the US and the UK are playing, especially with their allying with the Israelis, is causing a lot of problems with the Israeli neighborhood. Because they're not getting the support from the US like the Israelis are. That's just the way I see it.
Okay. Well, yes, Israel is aligned with the United States because they're a chief ally. That's a fact. And for anybody who disagrees with that relationship, I would say to you that you should be happy that that relationship exists. Reason being is this. Without Israel tied at the hip to the United States, Israel would be forced to react much quicker, take more chances than it had in the past. Now, that might be an uncomfortable truth, but the fact remains is this, is that first and foremost, Israel's responsibility is the maintaining of the security for its own people. Full stop. As with any state. That's the prime job for any government, is to safeguard its own citizens. Now, what do you do with a situation where one side refuses to lay down its weapons, refuses to enter into serious negotiations? Well, you can't do anything else except wait for that time to come. Now, any state will try to seek alliances with whatever power in order to get what it wants for its own self-survival. It's understandable. But you're not looking at the entire picture here, though. The Palestinians have received over 25 times the amount of aid given to Europe through the Marshall Plan. 25 times the amount. In other words, the Palestinians have received 25 times over what it took to rebuild Europe through the Marshall Plan. And where did that money go? Into a black hole. You're going to have to ask yourself why that is.
Yeah, but what I'm looking at...
You're going to have to ask yourself why that is.
Okay. Palestinians...
Who serves to benefit from that?
From where, I guess, I can't say other people, but from where I look, from what I've read, from what I've studied, from what I've researched, in Palestine, there's already than in Israel. Am I wrong on that?
You're going to have to ask why that poverty is. In light of what I just said, that the Palestinian Authority has received 25 times the amount of the money given to Europe through the Marshall Plan in the reconstruction of Europe after World War II. 25 times the amount. Where has the money gone? Why is there poverty? If more money is the answer, why is there still poverty?
Okay, that I cannot explain.
That's a good.
I cannot explain. But what I will say from what little I've read and researched, the Palestinians are way below the survival level as far as comparing them with Israel. I mean, we all know that. But they're supported with money for poverty and all of that. The Israelis are not. They are supported with actual technology, weaponry, and everything else you can think about that the Palestinians are not getting. And even if the war would break out today between Israel and Palestinian, the Israeli will wipe them off the map. I mean, geez, we know that, right? And the only way for this conflict to end, cooler heads must prevail, and some's got to give, and some's going to take, and it's going to be the other way around. But it cannot continue the way it's going, because, as I said about the Americans just now, being allied with Israel, it's even affecting people in the United States. Because just recently, a senator was bullied and driven out of a position because she held a difference of opinion with some other senators that supported the Jewish public. And I mean, that on its own, look how far it's far-reaching.
Right. So, just on an interesting point, since you bring that up, Felix, Kenneth, my question to you would be: do you think that is unhealthy? I think you're American-born, Kenneth, if I remember. Is that unhealthy to the point where foreign relationships with allies are having that sort of impact here at home in our own government, and it's forcing people out? Do you think that Felix might have a point where the relationship has just become too intricate, where it's just it's impacting normal citizens negatively, maybe in America?
It is, and there's no denying it.
I disagree.
You just can you elaborate?
What you're saying? What you're saying? Are you, Max? Are you saying that Israel's relationship with Israel is coming at an expense of its relations with the rest of the world?
I'm not trying to involve my own opinion by any means. I'm asking just in regards to Felix's point. And sorry, I just have to mute your mic for a second. I'll put you back on in a second because you're having an echo. But what I'm just saying is in regards to Felix's point that a specific senator had to resign due to a particular stance that he had on Israel. I mean, are signs of that occurring? Just maybe bringing the relationship between the two countries, Israel and the United States, maybe a little bit, they're just at too high of a level where that sort of thing is taking place?
It's toxifying.
First of all,
it's becoming
well, first of all, I have no idea what senator he's talking about. It's a senator because the senator held different views concerning Israel, had to resign. I've never heard of anything like that taking place, in all honesty. Now,
it was a female. It was a black female.
Who?
I don't have her name.
A black female senator.
A black female, yes. And she was
That's not true.
Hold on. She was elected into Congress. And because...
You're saying she was a congressman or a senator?
I believe it was Congress. I'll research it in a minute and get the name for you. But hang on. But she held a difference of opinion, and she was actually bullied out of Congress because of her difference of opinion on the same Jewish topic. She was on I believe she was on The View talking about it. And they went right back and showed where she was elected and what the dispute. And she was pushed out of Congress because of some difference of opinion we had on some topic concerning Jews. And now she's out of Congress because of it. So it's not just...
You're saying that when you said that she was pushed out of Congress, you're talking about the voters voted her out of Congress.
No. Her colleague.
I'm sorry, but this can't happen. I mean, no, that's farcical.
Hang on, Max. Do you have any?
That can't happen.
No, I don't know who you're speaking of.
You tell me, we'll both know.
So if you
okay, I'll get
so Felix, if you want to take a look quickly,
that's what I'm gonna do.
Yeah, take a look quickly, Kenneth. I'll redirect a question at you that I'd be interested to know about. Ultimately, in terms of obviously you're a strong supporter of Israeli and American relations. In terms of some of the things that Felix brings up, I find myself often questioning people, what particular things or specific things do you think that the Israeli government is not doing fairly or not conducting them fairly in terms of handling the Palestinian situation? Because, I usually ask a first question, which is, do you think the Israeli government is perfect? And most people would say no. And then my next follow-up question is then, okay, then what specific things do you think they can do better in handling the Palestinian situation?
Okay. I would say that, of course, no government is going to do everything, seamlessly and without fault. And there might be small policies and so forth, whatever visa situation or releasing of funds here and there and so forth. Certain small policies that I'm not familiar with. But as far as their position concerned, how to end the conflict, I don't see what the heck you can demand Israel to do that it hasn't done already. That's my starting point. You tell me exactly what the Israelis can actually do that they haven't done before. Okay, you can't be banging your head against the wall with the same formula each time, with regardless of different governments from left to right. They've tried all different types of formulas. You tell me what the Israelis can do that they haven't tried before to unilaterally make a peace with the Palestinians. You tell me, and we'll both know.
Right. So, I mean, in a sense where, let's say, specific Palestinian supporters might say, immediately halt, development of settlements, in the West Bank. I mean, is that something that you could say probably makes a lot of sense on the Israeli side to maybe do that? What are your thoughts on that?
No. My thought is this. I put it in this light, that I find it very hypocritical by the international community to say that the Jew building a home in its ancient homeland in Judea and Samaria is an obstacle to peace, while Palestinian terrorism should never be allowed to stop the peace process. Now, you're also starting off from a false premise that the settlements themselves are an obstacle to peace. And it never has been. Never has been. If you look at the language in the early Oslo Accords, the settlements, it was always a given that natural development within the settlements themselves is not an obstacle. Now,
but so Kenneth,
planting different.
Kenneth, my question would be though is that do you think people have a point where they might say, okay, the Oslo Accords, it's great, that happened, and I'm not an expert on this subject, but that happened a number of years ago, and so the idea is that times change, and so if you're actually serious, for pro-Palestinian supporters, if they're going to say if Israel is actually serious about wanting to have peace, well then, perhaps they need to, look at the present-day situation and reassess whether or not it still is a hindrance on peace by building settlements. I mean, do they have a point when they say, maybe we have to look at present times?
Again, I hear what you're saying. I hear what you're saying. But again, you're starting from a false premise. You're saying building settlements. You're talking like they're going in with massive trucks, staking out a new huge area, swiping it clean of rocks and shrubbery and whatever, and start building up huge structures. That's not the case. What the case is that there's natural growth within these communities. Okay? Plus, you have to look at existing treaties, existing UN resolutions. I'm talking about binding resolutions, not General Assembly resolutions. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
You're past negotiations based on these treaties and resolutions have not produced something, why do you want to build something out of whole cloth and think that that's going to all of a sudden be the panacea to solve the problem? I'm just asking for basing things on reality and past conduct.
Right. Yeah. No. And I mean, obviously, Kenneth, as I think I've shared with you, on my end, I definitely keep my personal opinions out of any one of these subjects on any one of the on any Vonvo that we have, just because I don't think it'd be professional on our end. But obviously, the questions I'm just asking are simply in terms of fostering objectivity and getting those sorts of points across for those who may be looking to ask it of someone such as yourself who's a pro-Israeli, if that makes sense.
I wasn't suggesting those were your questions, what you were thinking, whatever. I understand. Yeah. I mean, those are you have to
right.
Give out some type of
no, totally
there,
exactly, and so Felix, first off, did any of those points which Kenneth just brought up spark your interest, and did you find anything of what you were looking for before that you wanted to share with us? Felix, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. I'm almost back. Hang on for a second.
Okay, so
just let me go.
Okay, no problem. So, Kenneth, the next thing that I would bring up, can I get your opinion on the role that history is playing in this conflict? Sort of as another objective question, and tell me if you know where I'm coming from with this question. But ultimately, pro-Israelis and pro-Palestinians, they all seem to, have their own interpretation of, the history behind this conflict and where it originates from and who lived on the land first and when were they living on it together peacefully, etc. Can you kind of give us your sense of how history is really impacting this conflict going forward in terms of a solution? Is it safe to say that if people would drop the history and sort of start fresh with a clean slate, maybe that would be a dramatic booster in trying to solve the conflict? What's your thoughts on that?
Okay, well, I would say I would disagree with dropping any type of history, because without what that question proposes is that you remove 100% the actual history of what has taken place, removing the reality of the mindset of the principal players on the opposite side. and saying that, well, maybe if we just, blind ourselves and convince ourselves that the possibility exists, well, maybe that will change their attitude. And I just do not see it. My opinion is this.
Go ahead.
I think the best indicator of how the Palestinians are changing is how they deal with their own people. That is the best indicator of how the Israelis can eventually deal with the Palestinians when they first see how their society treats their own people, their own minorities.
Right. And I think that sort of response is by all means a position that you can take. I think the question more so comes from the idea that we've had so many Israeli-Palestinian discussions, and the idea is that if ultimately different people will come on and one person will give their interpretation of how history went down either back in 1948 or 2,000 years ago, and then another, a person from the other side will give their interpretation of how the history went down, and then together they'll find that they're in the same exact position, and over the past, let's say 60 years, they've been in the exact same position where they can't even get by the history. It almost brings into account the idea that maybe that item needs to, it's only hindering the issue because no one can seem to get past their own interpretations of what's actually gone on. Because for every thing that you might say about the history, someone on the other end is going to have a different interpretation of it. Does that make sense?
Well, I understand that is what has taken place. You actually, the actual history to the conflict can be ascertained, but through the amount of obfuscation and twisting and fabricating of the facts through the new historians and so forth. I mean, I can understand why people have a real skewed understanding of what takes place. And so there's a frustration on the other side that, what can be done because there's just two competing narratives. And, what can I say? I mean, I think what needs to be done, more than just going back to what happened 60 years ago, I would say let's go back to what happened 10 years ago. Okay, there has to be some point you can put your finger back to and say, this is what took place, this is what they said, this is what they actually did, and this is what they're doing now. There has to be at least something you can point to. It'd be very, very naive and dangerous to say, wipe the slate clean, okay, now let's just try everything over again like it hadn't happened. Again, it goes back to my original question. What can the Israelis do that they haven't already done that will affect the situation? And that's a conundrum. That's something that an honest person really can't answer.
Okay, Max, you there?
Yeah, we're here, and go ahead, Felix. Tell us if you...
Here is the link I just sent there. The name of the woman I'm talking about, her name is Cynthia McKinney. Now, this is the story.
Yeah. I know all about Cynthia.
Okay, Kenneth, let him finish his point. Go ahead, Felix, and then go ahead. Felix, Kenneth, are you there? Felix and Kenneth, are you there?
It was a key issue for the voters that her pledge was not, she refused to give her pledge. They saw that her values conflicted with their own values. And you're talking about the American political system, of how you can pick and choose your candidates. Okay, so if she, and for my part, Cynthia McKinney is a very far left radical. Okay, she's been over in Libya, boasting with Muammar Gaddafi when he was alive. She was a fellow traveler of his. She's a very major, big radical. So her being edged out of the politics, in my opinion, is a plus, not only for the Republican Party, but for the Democrat Party as well. So, I mean, you know, you may disagree with party politics, but at the end of the day, it's the voters that decide. And if she can't muster the number of votes or the confidence in the voters to win for the primary seat for her party, then that's her fault.
Oh, well, it wasn't that she didn't get the votes. She was denied the funds for her campaign, so she could not campaign. Therefore, if you can campaign, you're automatically...
Right, because the party... I understand, but you see, that's within the party. They can withhold their funds if they deem that the candidate is too extreme, and she's an extremist. I don't know why you think that she's such a wonderful person.
No.
She really is the fringe of the fringe.
I'm not saying she is a wonderful person. That's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying is, because of her difference of opinion on supporting Israel, because of her opinion, not because she's a nice person or radical, because of her opinion, that is why she suffered from what happened to her. Even the Libyan thing meant nothing because nobody talked about it. When she spoke,
but you see, here's an article I'm just looking at about Cynthia May, okay? And it said that she needed 18,860 votes, signatures to get on the ballot. And if she doesn't get it, she can't get on the ballot. All right, I'm looking at it right here. You know, there's
listen, Kenneth, I'm not disagreeing with the ballot or the voters or they didn't vote for her. That's not my argument. My argument is simply that what happened to her, being denied funds for campaign, was because of her opinion on Israeli topic. That's all I'm saying. And what I'm saying, added on to that, is her opinion should not have mattered because the United States...
Of course they should have mattered. Of course it matters. It matters. Her opinions do matter. She's a politician.
Okay, let me just finish. The United States run on the premise of a free and democratic society. People who is entitled to an opinion, their beliefs, and all of that. Right? And even if that is what her beliefs were, even if that is what her beliefs were, she should still have been afforded everything everybody else got from the party, because that's where she belonged. Now, hadn't been given the funds to fund her campaign, and she was voted out, then she had no reason to comment because she would have been treated equally. But in this case, she was not treated equally. That's what my argument is.
Okay, well, your argument is based on the false premise again. It's based on the... I mean, let's put it this way. The party, regardless... I mean, I'm not a Democrat, and I've never been a Democrat, and I am...
I'm not American, so there's nothing in this for me.
Yeah.
Right? There's nothing in this for me.
The thing is that each party, both parties, try to advance the candidate they think not only best represents them, but also has a chance of winning. Okay?
Right.
Most Americans, whether you personally or anybody else watching this likes it or not, the average American identifies with Israel, a fellow democracy, more than they do with the entity that is autocratic and at times despotic. That's a fact of life. The average American will not respond just as much as they respond to say the they have better feelings towards Taiwanese who are Chinese than they do with national Chinese on the mainland. Okay, it's because of the democratic nature of the society. So a politician has to reflect those values if they stand a hope of winning a substantial number of people. Now, until that changes, people like Cynthia McKinney will not get the vote because the Democrat Party, as well as Republican, will field candidates they feel that can pick up that seat. And they're not going to spend money on a candidate that they feel is being wasted on, that hasn't a chance. And Cynthia McKinney has taken herself out of the mainstream, if she ever even was. The people reject her, and the party realizes that. They're not going to spend money on a losing candidate. And you also have to understand that the district that she's from.
Didn't she win in 2006, 2004, those years?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
That's my point. This is what I'm saying.
Sure she did. But people change. But
this is what I'm saying. She was good enough then, but because of a different opinion on the Israeli matter, that is what made the difference. Now, I'm not saying she's good or bad. I don't know the woman. I don't care who the woman is. All I'm simply saying is that the Israeli conflict, the Israeli support from the U.S., if you don't in any way show solidarity with your colleagues in Congress or the Senate or wherever, then that's just cause for you to be ousted. And it shouldn't, all I'm saying, it shouldn't be that way. Because America is born on the principle of democracy and a constitution that allows you to believe and say what you want. And it shouldn't be. No, like I said, I'm not American. I've never been.
Yes, but if it doesn't, but
you know, and that's one of the things that's affecting the Middle East, right?
So you think that you think every politician that runs for their district always wins?
No, that's not.
And they have a right to that seat.
No, that's
yeah.
Not
Well, you know, you're.
All I'm saying, she should have been treated equally, given the money to run her campaign, and if the people in her district don't want her, then she'll be voted out. Then she's got no reason to complain. What? She's got a leg to stand on because her colleagues got money for campaign, whereas because of her opinion on Israel, she did not receive any. Now, on its own, if you look at it, that's discrimination because of her belief.
Yeah, but you have to look at the party platform. Well, I disagree because you have to look at the Democrat Party platform. They have a strong opinion about their support for Israel. That's the Democrat. If she ran as an independent, then she could run as an independent. But she's a Democrat member. She's a party member of the Democrat Party, and they have a party platform.
I understand your take on the party platform.
So why should they field a candidate that doesn't reflect their views?
Because she is entitled to an opinion, isn't she?
Yes, but she's part of the party. She has a platform. Either she believes in the party platform or she doesn't. And if she doesn't, then she falls outside of the mainstream of the Democrat Party, and they're not going to support her. She can go run as an independent and see if she can get the 18,860 signatures needed to run on the ballot. And if she can't, then she doesn't have support.
I agree.
I don't see what else I can do.
I agree with everything that you said. All I'm saying is that because of, I'm using the word Israel here. Israel, right? Israel is the topic. Because of Israel, her opinion on Israel. That's what I'm saying. It should not have had consequences in the United States of America when it's something.
I'm sorry. It's a circular argument because United States support for Israel is out of United States self-interest, pure and simple. That they have developed a friendship and mutual ties outside of that self-interest, okay? But it is what it is. And,
Right.
again, we're just coming to the circular argument. You can look at, well, you're saying that the Israeli lobby is so powerful, but the Israeli lobby can't stop lots of things that run against Israel's self-interest.
I agree.
Because it's in America's self-interest. When they sell weapons to Saudi Arabia, when they sell weapons to Egypt that's now run by the Muslim Brotherhood, that goes against Israel's self-interest. And they do it all the time, irrespective of the Israeli lobby. So, I mean, I think you put maybe too much emphasis on what the Jewish lobby, can actually do and not do. It's when push comes to shove, the average American again is pro-Israel, and it's because they identify, and that won't change. At least
now,
not.
Let's just shift away from that.
Hopefully, never in a long time.
What is your on the situation with Jerusalem? Are you in favor of a shared city?
What situation is that? What situation is that?
Like what I'm talking about.
I will. If anything, I would allot the Palestinian Authority the gas station over at Abu Dis. Okay, that's as close as they can come to Jerusalem. They can have the gas station at Abu Dis.
Okay, so that's your point. In other words, you're saying that this idea,
Jerusalem. Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I'm listening. I'm listening.
So this idea.
Okay. Well.
Yeah.
No. Jerusalem is the city. Is.
Go ahead, Max. Sorry. I'll be quiet. You talk, and I'll respond.
Okay. What? You kind of broke up. I didn't quite hear everything you said.
I said you can go ahead and talk, and I'll respond.
All right. Okay. I guess we're talking about Jerusalem. Jerusalem is the capital of the Jewish state of Israel,
right.
And it should remain the undivided state of the Jewish state of Israel. Jerusalem has never been the focal point of Islam in general, and the only reason why Jerusalem has now become a center of attention for Palestinians is due to pure politics. And they have Allah, or they can have Abu Dis. I'll give them that. They can set up a flag there and have.
Okay, let me just ask you this. I guess this will make for a better conversation. In your mind, what do you think take to end the conflict with Palestinians and the Israelis?
For the Arabs to finally give up on having Tel Aviv as a city of their own, to give up on having all of Israel, to give up having eternal campaign to dislodge the Jews from the state of Israel, for the Palestinians to end the incitement of Israel and creating an environment within their own society for sustainable hatred and conflict. Other than that, I just don't see what the Israelis can do other than waiting for some signs of normalcy to be born within that community.
What do you think?
Peace is not just going to come because you sit down and think real hard, have it pop out. It takes two sides, and one side is just completely unwilling and wants to maintain the level of hostility. What else can you do?
I think that the reason that the Palestinians have dug their heels in and appear. Now, I'm not going to say that that's their final stand of whatever it is they're doing right now. But I think that one of the reasons they've dug their heels in and behaving the way they are is because they feel that because they're a more vulnerable society, that they're being taken advantage of. And the support, like I mentioned before, the support that Israel's getting.
The only people they're taking advantage of is themselves.
Right. No, that may be so. I don't know. But what I'm saying is, from the little that I've studied and read and researched, is that they believe that it's Israel plus the Western world against them. That's the way to look at it. And it's like, the little guy in the class among a bunch of bullies, he take all the beating they put on him, but he just will not leave because he thinks he's entitled to the same as them. Right? I think that's where the whole thing lies. They think that they're too vulnerable, they've been taken advantage of, and that's where it's going to keep going. And the only way they know how to deal with those problems is like most other Middle East countries that's happening right now, is through weapons and things like that, which I don't agree with, by the way.
Yeah.
Right?
I'm glad you don't agree with that. Yeah.
I absolutely.
But Felix, are you familiar with the old saying, "You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink"?
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, how many times they've been offered a state of their own and they've refused? I mean, at some point along the way, you just got to scratch your head and say, maybe it's not a state that they actually want.
Right.
And it's my opinion that the Palestinian leadership, I'm not talking about the people themselves, because the government does not reflect the actual will of the people. Okay? It's not a representative government. All right? The Palestinian leadership, it's in their best interest not to end the conflict. Like I said before, the money has gone somewhere. All of the billions upon billions upon billions of dollars that have gone into the Palestinian Authority, it's gone. It's in bank accounts abroad. Arafat had $6 billion. You look through all the, in the Judea and Samaria, and even in Gaza, you see all these expensive homes, all these mansions, and then you're talking about, how can the Palestinians have poverty? Well, you got to look and see where actually there isn't poverty and say, why the disparity? All of this aid money, where has it gone to? Well, it's in the leadership's best interest to keep the aid money flowing. They don't have any responsibility. They're not taken to task for their corruption. The money keeps flowing. The propaganda keeps going. And there you have it. I mean, what do you expect Israel to do with them? They refuse to end the conflict.
Right. So, where do we go from there?
Where does it go from there? Well, you tell me, we'll both know. Like I said before.
If that's the problem, if, as you just so eloquently put it out, that the hierarchy in the Palestinian regime are the ones who's profiting from what's happening right now, keeping the war going and keeping the hatred, spiraling upward, then the United States should take a more objective approach and say, well, you know what? What did they do to Saddam? Right? If the hierarchy in the Palestinian order is this is what they're doing, then perhaps it's time to deal with them.
Fine by me.
Well, I mean,
fine by me. The best thing they could do is to choke the flow of money going to them. The aid money is not helping the Arabs. Do you realize all of the aid money that has gone to them could have gone to other sources, could have gone to other places around the world. And, you know, and you're going to have to look at the rhetoric that comes from the Palestinian side, from the pro-Palestinian propaganda machines about apartheid this, poverty this, genocide this, ethnic cleansing this. There's obesity. They have an obesity problem in the Arab areas. Oh, now he's gone. It's just me, guys.
Hey, Kenneth, I'm not...
Palestinian leadership will settle nothing for less than a Jew in Israel. I agree, Larry.
Hey, Kenneth,
Max,
I'm not too sure what...
you left us.
I'm not... His internet may have, gone down. But I'm not too sure exactly what happened. I'm sure he'll come back into the, discussion. But I just want to let you know I've been having the recording going. So, no need to worry in terms of that. And how are you, Zamira?
Fine. How are you, Max? I hope I can join with your
Go right ahead. And I'm assuming Felix will, join back in. But I will, obviously...
I'm gonna have to get going soon myself.
Okay.
So...
No problem. So, Zamir, did you have anything that you wanted to mention to Kenneth on what he was saying?
Yes, I'm in total agreement with Kenneth on everything that I heard since I came to the conversation. The point on the candidate of McKinney, certainly, as I texted in the chat, it's unreasonable to assume that American candidates are going to be judged or favorably or disfavorably based solely on their opinions on Israel. That is almost illogical to me to see that as a correct assumption. And secondly, the settlement issue regarding international law and not international law. The settlements are legal according to international law. There is undeniable proof concerning that, and there's no question about that. And thirdly, Jerusalem, of course, is the undividable capital of Israel. It will always be so. And again, I did point out that recently Israeli police have addressed a situation of rock throwing, which occurs frequently in Jerusalem, including several other actions in the holy city that Islamists claim as holy to them and Palestinians claim as holy to them. And certainly when you have reverence for a holy city, this is not a correct behavior. This is certainly not a behavior that should be happening in the holy city.
Right. Okay, great.
This is what brings to question how is it that Palestinians regard Jerusalem as holy and they behave in this way?
Zamir, that's an excellent point. When you talk about reverence, traditionally, there hasn't been any reverence by Islam towards Jerusalem. It's only a recent phenomenon. It's only a recent phenomenon.
I understand. Basically, your point is exactly correct. It's a recent phenomenon. There is a purpose behind that recent phenomenon, of course.
Again, we come to the basic of basic questions, that you're asked when all solutions have been exhausted. Like, what next? What do we do now? What can we do? And sorry, but there is just the reality on the ground, and you can't force a situation, force a solution on people who do not want peace. It's not in their interest of their leadership. And I'm not talking about the average Palestinian, like I said earlier. Who knows? Maybe there's a percentage of them that actually do want peace. I wouldn't say that number's all that high, but let's say, for sake of argument, there is a somewhat of a number of Arabs that definitely just want to end it and get on with their lives. Fine. But again, it's the leadership. It's an authoritarian regime.
Correct.
autocratic, at times despotic, and they call the shots. It's in their interests, in the interest of their clans, to keep the conflict going. They want to wear down Israel and its supporters through attrition, and keeping a small level of violence going, not enough to cause a major war, but enough to keep the people engaged, their people engaged, and so forth, and keeping the aid money flowing. That's what they want. If you end the aid, or at least drastically reduce the aid, who knows, make the Arabs start coughing up stuff, and maybe they would start forcing something on them. I don't know, but I think it would be a step in the right direction for Europe, the West.
The issue that you brought up that is a key point is, where has all of this money gone in aid?
Yeah.
Where is the accounting for all of this financial aid? Where has it gone? And if you have seen where it has gone, you see in the activity, how is it that they are able to get chemicals to make Molotov cocktails? How are they able to get weapons like the rockets that they shoot onto Israeli citizens and areas? Where is that money going? We see where that money is going.
Well, either into the weapons or into foreign bank accounts. And,
correct.
Now, time to end the aid, time to end UN WRA or RWA, and start moving things on the ground in that respect, because what's been happening over the last 40 years, or at least the last 20 after the Cold War has ended, has not helped anything whatsoever. We're still back at square one, and you just have to come to the conclusion that one side definitely does not want the end, at least the leadership of.